In today's talking points video, we're going to take a look at last game week's fixtures, break down the key talking points so you can stay ahead in FPL for the up and coming game week. Should we really be buying EKITIKE, and is it too early to sell someone like João Pedro? Well, let's take a look. Welcome to a brand new series to the FPL Mugs YouTube channel this season, the Game Week Talking Points, where we look at the previous game week's fixtures, research and learn about them so we can get better at FPL as the weeks go by. I just want to say a massive thank you for all of the support lately. We hit 870 subscribers the other day. Let's see if we can make that 900 on today's video, and the like goal for today's video is 20 likes, so if we can hit both of those, that'll be absolutely fantastic. But kicking things off with the first fixture of the Premier League season, and it was a really exciting one. Liverpool 4, Bournemouth 2. Now, this was a very much back and forwards game, and there's quite a lot to talk about here, but let's try and get through it. So, as you can see from the attack and returns, it was really spread out. It was only EKITIKE and Semenyo who got more than one attack and return in the game week, and that of course is reflective in their point total for the game week. Semenyo hitting 15, EKITIKE hitting 11. You then look at the defensive contribution points, which is an exciting new rule added this season. Virgil van Dijk, Tavernier, Adams and Senesi getting those 2 extra points. And the people that were quite close, which I thought was super surprising, was Szoboszlai, and the most surprising of all, Mohamed Salah. Of course, midfielders need 12 defensive actions to get those 2 extra defensive contribution points. And Salah, you know, being a very exciting forward to own in FPL, and in fact, the most expensive player in FPL, I don't think we really bought him for defensive contributions. So for him to even be close to it is maybe an exciting thing. Who knows how that's going to turn out. I doubt he's going to have defensive contributions all the way through the season, but he was super close in this fixture. I think a really important thing to consider though right now is EKITIKE went up in price last night. And this is something that actually really shocked me. I knew people would look at EKITIKE because, of course, 11 points. He's playing up front for Liverpool. It seems a really good deal, but I just want to show you something really quickly that's kind of putting me off EKITIKE at the moment and possibly making him a bad transfer. I'll let you know. I'll talk through my opinion on it, and you can let me know in the comments if I'm right or wrong on this. But his next 2 fixtures, Newcastle away, and then he's got Arsenal at home. I don't think they're good fixtures whatsoever. I think everyone would agree with you there. You then have Burnley and Everton and Crystal Palace. They're good fixtures for me, but there's one big issue with that. So, Alexander Isak does exist, and it looks like he only wants Liverpool, and Liverpool really like Alexander Isak, so that transfer could definitely happen in this window. So for game week 3, when Liverpool play Arsenal, of course a difficult fixture, we're then going to go on to the next game week when the good fixtures start to happen. There's a 2-week gap here, and the transfer window closes on the 1st of September. So the 31st of August, when Liverpool play their fixture, they're probably going to have at least Alexander Isak by then, or if they don't, they're not going to consider him at all, in which case EKITIKE will be fantastic. But with the interest that Liverpool have on Alexander Isak, it's pretty likely that he will make the move to Liverpool. So at this point, you then have a 2-week gap for Alexander Isak to be familiar with the Liverpool system, and probably play his first game in a Liverpool shirt if the transfer is made before the 1st of September, because there's 2 weeks gap there. Now, I don't know, for me, if Alexander Isak is around for this game in game week 4, we're going to be considering him as a transfer, and what's that going to do to EKITIKE's minutes going forward? For me, I think it's important to consider that Isak move is definitely real within the transfer window, but EKITIKE's prices now went up by 0.1 million, and I don't think it's worth selling someone maybe like a Watkins to go down to an EKITIKE. Just doesn't quite make sense to me right now, but that is Liverpool and Bournemouth. We then had Aston Villa and Newcastle with a 0-0 draw, and to be honest, the game was a little bit boring. It was only really the Konsa red card that spiced things up. Newcastle and Aston Villa kind of both attacking each other, but Newcastle really dominating the fixture, I thought. it was interesting to see the likes of Watkins, Rodgers and Tielemans, popular FPL assets, not really do much attacking wise. I don't know how that's going to play out when they play more slightly, we'll say, easier oppositions. Of course, Newcastle are a good defence normally, and we can see that through their points this week. You had, of course, firstly, the Aston Villa players, Onana and Cash, hitting those defensive contribution points. Then Sarr, Fabian Schär and Dan Burn both hitting their defensive contribution points as the centre-backs for Newcastle. And Pope, of course, doing quite well in the game week as well, with Livramento picking up all 3 bonus points. So maybe when Newcastle's fixtures get slightly better, we could be considering their defence. But yeah, pretty boring game, but a few little bits to learn, especially about the Aston Villa defence and the attacking options for Aston Villa. Brighton and Fulham with the 1-1 draw, and there's a few FPL talking points we need to bring up here. We had O'Reilly with a goal on penalties for Brighton. We had Muniz come on later in the fixture and score the goal that tied up the fixture, with Jorginho Ruta, a differential option, getting an assist, and Wilson as well getting an assist in that fixture. Maybe the pre-season form is going to continue for this Fulham side. We also had a quick mention of Joshua King for Fulham, a player who is at 4.5 million. Has been a little bit exciting in pre-season because we could have a good sort of budget enabler option, but nothing too crazy to report on how he did within the fixture. Some decent defensive contribution points, however, not many people actually getting enough to gain the 2 extra points. Someone like Belieber, really interesting, who we thought was going to be an absolute monster, just nearly missing out on that marker for 12. Of course, he is a midfielder and needs 12 to get those points. And Anderson as well, a differential option in FPL, but a defensive contribution monster, only getting 8 within this fixture. I expected him to definitely get it in this fixture, considering how attacking Brighton are, but maybe it's not so clear to predict as we thought. Now, the interesting thing is Muniz obviously coming on later in a fixture. I do think this is probably going to continue. It looked like a celebration was kind of saying, look, I'm staying at Fulham, because he has had transfer speculation. Same with O'Reilly. It looks like he could be moving to someone like Juventus. We'll have to wait and see on that one, but a penalty take for Brighton while he's still in the squad. I do think that responsibility will fall to Jorginho Ruta. Jorginho Ruta actually won the penalty for Brighton, but yeah, Fulham and Brighton 1-1. If you haven't already seen it, go ahead and watch Richarlison's goal he scored in this fixture. Very similar to the one he scored for Brazil, sort of an overhead kick style goal. Who expected that from Richarlison? I personally didn't. I thought Solanke would get a decent amount of minutes within this fixture, but Richarlison stepping up, getting 2 goals, and Brennan Johnson actually getting a goal as well, with Kudus and Pape Sarr both getting assists. Kudus with 2 assists in this fixture, getting him 10 points for the game week, because he got 1 bonus point in this fixture. I personally picked Vicario as my goalkeeper to start the Premier League season, and I'm very glad I did. 9 points is really good for a goalkeeper. Of course, 2 bonus points, a save point, I believe, as well as the clean sheet. Absolutely fantastic work by him. And I don't know, Spurs just look a lot better. 3-0 for them in this fixture. It is Burnley, but I'm getting excited about Spurs assets already this Premier League season. If you've watched this channel before, you'll know I'm a Sunderland fan. I've actually run out of Sunderland shirts for this video, so I'm wearing my Esperance one. But yeah, I can't control how happy I am with how Sunderland performed in this game. I will say West Ham are in big trouble this season. If they don't change how they played from how they played us at the Stadium of Light, they could be going down the season. It was really, really poor from West Ham. I'm hoping Sunderland were just that good. We can maybe pull some results in the next few weeks. I really don't know how it's going to turn out until we face a genuinely strong opposition. But goals from Ballard, defensive contributions from Ballard, 3 bonus points for Dan Ballard, 17 points. He is the top scorer for game week 1. I mean, I knew he's good at headers, but bloody hell, he's brilliant. I mean, 17 points. People are going to be transferring in. In fact, I do think he's one of the highest transferred in players for game week 1. Just be careful. If you're considering bringing in Sunderland defenders, fantastic, awesome. I would encourage it because I think the next 2 game weeks are pretty good in terms of clean sheet potential, and again, probably defensive contributions for someone like Dan Ballard. But we are newly promoted. We are a new side that are gelling together. Please just be careful when you're transferring in Sunderland players. I wouldn't get too excited. Across the board, though, we've seen cameos from Wilson Isidore, which makes possibly Mayenda a, how do we say this, not as great of an asset, because we also have Mark Guay on the bench from Chelsea on loan. I do think he hasn't had long enough training with the squad to be included straight away, but I do expect him with at least within the next 2 fixtures to make an appearance. So that forward spot for Sunderland is, you know, not as secure in FPL as we think. Dingra really looked fantastic. I think he is kind of struggling a bit. He was a bit clumsy at times, but really explosive, same as Talby. I mean, overall, I'm just so happy with how my team played. I'm looking forward to the next 2 fixtures. Our keeper was fantastic. I do think he'll make a lot of saves across the season, and our defence looked really solid. I could go on hours for talking about how good we were in this fixture, but I need to see more through more game weeks that really consider Sunderland assets as definite includes within my squad personally. But come on, it was really fantastic, this game. I'm such a happy Sunderland fan. Man City 4, Wolves 0, a very dominant performance from City and a very impressive performance from Reinders. Now, you've probably heard everyone talking about him. 5.5, now 5.6, I may add, due to the price rise last night. He was fantastic. I think he was the best 5.5 in the game, but of course he costs more than 5.5 right now. So, yeah, absolutely fantastic. Haaland, he probably was the premium to start the season with because he outscored Salah. But over the first 6 weeks, who do I think will come out on top? I still think it will be Mohamed Salah, but Haaland owners can't laugh for now for game week 1. I think he was really fantastic, and I think City as a whole were really fantastic. An interesting player to speak about is Oscar Bob. Of course, a lot of us last pre-season had Oscar Bob in their teams because of his cheap price point. I think even now at his price point, he's a decent option to consider. We maybe need to see a little bit more on how many minutes he's genuinely going to get for Man City, but he was a really interesting pick for me. Rico Lewis has been targeted by Nottingham Forest. I don't know if that transfer is going to happen. When he came off the pitch, he kind of clapped the fans to say maybe goodbye. I'm not too sure how that's going to work, but just keep an eye on that transfer potentially. Of course, that could affect someone like Nico Williams minutes, who is a very popular Forest asset. But yeah, Haaland actually coming off a little bit earlier in this fixture, which was quite surprising for Marmoush. Was it Marmoush? It might have been Marmoush or Cherky. I can't quite remember on that, but he definitely came off early. And still getting 3 bonus points in the fixture for his 2 goals and 3 bonus points. I think Haaland was great. I think Man City were great. We should definitely be considering more of their assets, but we have to be careful, again, of Pep Roulette. Sorry, I'm just still incredibly tired of this game. What a miserable and crap performance this was. Just not great whatsoever. The only excitement was Eze's free kick that went in, but was disallowed because Gehi decided to barge into the wall for some reason. It's just against the rules, just don't do it. But yeah, 0-0, boring, nothing happened. Palmer left the studs of his boots at home. João Pedro, I don't know, what is he doing? Like, he did nothing within this game, got hooked early. Liam Delap came on, held the ball up okay at some points, but the creativity in that Chelsea team was just nowhere to be found. I found it really difficult to understand why I should keep a hold of someone like Palmer. It's super early doors, I understand this. We'll see how they do against West Ham, a team that really didn't look good against Sunderland, as we've discussed in this video. I don't know, it just seemed completely off from Chelsea. Crystal Palace, on the other hand, I thought defended well. I really think they defended well, but I don't know, going forward, it just seemed a little bit too sloppy. In possession with Sarr and Eze and Mateta, their passes to each other just didn't quite meet at times. I don't know if it's because Eze could potentially be leaving Crystal Palace. I think there's a 50 million or 55 million pound bid in from Spurs at the moment for Eze. But yeah, it was a bit disappointing from the forward line of Crystal Palace. I think Munoz and Mitchell were standouts in this fixture. Lacroix as well was really good, of course, hitting those defensive contribution points. Of course, João Pedro, Palmer very high owned. João Pedro for me, getting hooked early, Liam Delap coming on. Someone to keep an eye on to potentially sell in a few weeks' time if this keeps happening and Chelsea still aren't too creative going forward. Palmer we'll have to see, because he was going to be my Game Week 2 captain. Am I reconsidering things after watching that game? Yes, but also I'm not, because West Ham were really, really terrible against Sunderland, my club, and when Palmer's on his game, he's on his game, and I don't really want to be behind in that just because of one fixture. We've seen how well they performed in the Club World Cup and how they can adapt to games, but they really couldn't break Palace down, and I think that's a big worry. I mean, who really expected this to happen? Like, Nottingham Forest in pre-season were dreadful. I can't quite remember. I think they only scored 1 goal. It was really terrible. And they've went against Brentford, scored 3. Chris Wood proving us all wrong, being the proper 7.5 to own for game week 1. Not a lot of people considering him, but I think he's proved us wrong. I think he's proved us all wrong, and I'm happy he has, because Chris Wood is just a fun player to have in FPL. A goal for Ndoye. Not too sure how to say his name, but of course first game, and I believe his first chance he actually scored with a beautiful header. Gibbs White assist for that goal was absolutely fantastic. Anderson is definitely a player we need to talk about here. 5.5. If he hit the defensive contributions and got 2 extra points there, he'd be very close to Reinders, and I think maybe he would be close to getting a price rise like Reinders did just last night. Of course, getting 1 bonus point as well. He was close to getting another assist as well, but the ball did touch 2 other players before it got to Chris Wood. I think this was an impressive performance by Forest, and something that's opened my eyes now to Forest assets moving forward. I do think we have to keep an eye on Brentford as well, because Thiago up front being the penalty taker, scoring the 1 goal for Brentford. Yes, Brentford looked a lot weaker at the back, which is maybe something we can definitely target in the next few weeks, but yeah, overall, a very impressive performance from Forest. And Brentford, I don't know, they could be a team we're targeting. Sunday's final fixture, the scoreline for me didn't actually give justice to Manchester United. Manchester United, for me, were great in this fixture, absolutely fantastic. But Arsenal, at the end of the day, know what has to be done in these fixtures. They know how they want to play, and they will bully oppositions on set pieces, get that 1 or 2 goal lead, and just sit. That's how they want to play. That's completely fine. I don't think they'll win the league doing that at all, because look, going forward, they weren't great whatsoever. Saka dropped an absolute stinker. You had to have Calafiori score off a corner, which Saliba bullied Manchester United's goalkeeper for. Of course, Declan Rice taking set pieces, definitely something to keep an eye on. Defensive contributions across the board. I think because Manchester United was so attacking, players like Saliba, Odegaard, Zubimendi did get up to those 2 extra points, and of course we've seen Bruno Fernandes get very, very close to his defensive contribution points, but Arsenal were just so good at defending, there wasn't really an opportunity for him to get an attack and return. I still think he's a good asset to own, and I'm quite happy I own for the next few game weeks, but we'll just have to keep an eye on things, because he was quite deep, especially in the later stages of the game, but I do think that's because of the nature of how Arsenal defend. They sit and they just do not move, and Bruno Fernandes does drop and kind of just launch balls forward, and then I don't know why, but Amarin just puts Maguire on and goes, yeah, go up front, mate, go score a header. Like, it worked like once or twice. I don't think it's a viable strategy, and I don't think it's something that Manchester United should be doing in the Premier League, but we'll let them do it. I'm not the Premier League manager here. Overall, a decent performance for the Arsenal defenders. Calafiori getting 13 points. I would stay away from him. We just don't know who's going to play fullbacks for Arsenal going forward. Saliba and Gabriel, definitely players I would target, especially with Leeds in game week 2. We have to wait and see tonight how Leeds perform against Everton. Maybe they're just a fantastic defence and we're a bit more cautious about Arsenal, but Arsenal are just a good team. But yeah, really impressive from Manchester United. I think their assets going forward, Mbeumo, Cunha, Bruno Fernandes, Šeško, I think we have to keep an eye on them because of how brilliant they were. I think it might take a few weeks for them to click, and perhaps by that Burnley game they've got in a few weeks' time, we could be owning more Manchester United players in our FPL teams. I outro my videos always with a massive thank you to you guys at home for supporting the FPL Mogs YouTube channel. Of course, if you enjoyed today's video, go ahead and click the like button, and if you aren't yet subscribed to the channel, go ahead and subscribe for future FPL videos and deadline streams. But that is everything for today's video. Thank you again so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye for now.